The clock on Officer Travis Brenner's cruiser read 6:42 p.m. Light was fading over the trees lining Saluda Avenue in Columbia, South Carolina. The houses here had wide porches and brick mailboxes. Quiet money, old money. He was 2 hours from the end of his shift, sipping flat coffee from a dented thermos, when he noticed the sleek black Mercedes crawl to a stop at a stop sign. Too slow. It rolled forward, not enough to ticket, but just enough to bother him. He flicked his lights on, his fingers already reaching for the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 24. I'm initiating a traffic stop on a black Mercedes S-Class. No plates visible from the rear, occupied once." The car eased to the curb under a dogwood tree. No sudden moves, no panic. The driver rolled down the window before he even got to the door. "Evening, officer," said the voice inside, clear, firm, unshaken. Travis stopped short. The woman behind the wheel wasn't what he expected. She was black, mid-60s maybe, short silver hair, straight posture, a calm stare. She wore a black robe, judicial, not religious, and her hand rested on the steering wheel, fingers steady. "I'm Judge Renee Mallory," she said, offering a slight nod. "This is my vehicle. I'm heading home from the courthouse." He blinked. "License and registration, please." She didn't hesitate. She passed them over like she'd done it 1,000 times. "Any reason you pulled me over?" Travis scanned the documents. They checked out, but something about it didn't sit right with him. "Yeah," he said slowly, eyes narrowing. "This car fits the description of a stolen vehicle reported earlier today." Renee raised a brow. "It's registered to me. You can confirm with dispatch." "I will." He walked back to his cruiser, radioed it in, but as he waited, his eyes didn't leave her through the windshield. She didn't fidget. She didn't touch her phone. Just sat still, watching the sky grow darker. Dispatch came back. "No stolen report linked to that VIN. Registration matches the name on the license. Everything checks out." Still, Travis didn't return her papers. He stepped back to her window. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle for me, ma'am?" Renee's voice sharpened. "Is that a lawful order?" His hand dropped toward his holster. "Yes." There was a long pause. Her eyes didn't move from his face. "Are you detaining me?" "I'm asking you to step out. We'll clear things up." A small group had started to gather. One teenager lifted a phone. The red light blinked. Renee spoke louder this time, enough for those watching. "I'm Judge Renee Mallory of the 5th Judicial Circuit. This is my vehicle. You've received confirmation it is not stolen. You are now unlawfully detaining me." Travis flinched, not visibly, but his stance shifted. He knew the law, knew the camera was on, knew the crowd was growing. But something in him, the part too proud to back down, held him in place. The second time she said it, her voice hit differently. "You're violating my rights." Someone across the street called out, "That's Judge Mallory, man. She ain't lying." But Travis didn't move. His voice was tight. "I asked you to step out. And I asked," she said, "if this is legal." Silence. Then a voice from the crowd, low but clear. "Get your hands off your weapon, officer." He hadn't realized his fingers hovered near his holster. Tense, he pulled them back. More phones went up. A woman muttered, "She's the one who gave my cousin probation last month. She's fair. You messing up, bro." Travis stepped back, unsure now. The cameras, the voices, the uniform, it all felt heavier than before. Renee rolled up her window 2 inches, not slamming it, just enough. She turned her head forward. He walked back to his cruiser, heart pounding. But the story wasn't ending there. It was just beginning to crack open. He sat in the cruiser, windows halfway down, fingers tapping the steering wheel. The dispatch confirmation still echoed in his head. Everything checks out. But Travis Brenner wasn't ready to pull off. He got out again, more deliberate this time, shutting the door behind him like punctuation. Walked slowly back toward the car. The crowd had moved. If anything, it had grown by 2 or 3 more people, murmuring among themselves, "Phones up." Renee didn't roll down the window further. She waited. Her face was steady, her jaw set, the way someone looks when they've been here before. He tapped on the glass, just once. She lowered it 2 inches more. "Man," he said, voice flatter now, "I need to ask you a few more questions. You've already verified my license, my registration, and who I am," she replied. "What else do you need, Officer Brenner?" The sound of her saying his name calmly, like a reprimand in a courtroom, dug under his skin. "How long have you had this vehicle?" "Since February of last year. Bought it certified pre-owned from Midland's Mercedes." He nodded slowly, pretending to make mental notes. "Paid in full?" Her eyes narrowed. "Are you asking how I paid for my car?" "I'm asking because you think I stole it," she finished for him, "even after it was confirmed I didn't." Travis opened his mouth, then closed it. She kept going. "Do you ask every driver in this neighborhood how they can afford their car?" "Ma'am, don't twist my words." "I don't have to. They twist themselves." There it was, the verbal shift. She was no longer explaining. She was challenging. And yet, she never raised her voice. Someone behind them muttered, "He better back off." Travis heard it, pretended not to, but it added weight. So did the red light on the phone across the street, still blinking. Renee looked out the window, then back at him. "Do you know how many hours I've spent this week in courtrooms mediating disputes, sitting warrants, ruling on bond hearings? You think after all that, I clock out and decide to boost a Mercedes off Divine Street?" He felt small. "Still," he asked, "is this your only vehicle?" Renee leaned her head against the window frame. "That's the 4th time you've implied I shouldn't be driving this car." "It's not personal," he lied. "Sure it is," she said quietly. "You don't see me, not really. You see a possibility you've already decided is true." He looked away, at the grass, at the curb, anywhere but her face. "You don't get to carry a badge and walk around with that kind of certainty." She continued, "Not when it's wrong, not when it puts lives at risk." His chest tightened. The line was getting thin, and he felt it. Renee softened just enough. "You could have run my name and been gone 10 minutes ago. But instead, you're still here, asking how I bought my own car." He didn't answer. He couldn't. Then another car pulled up behind the crowd. A 2nd patrol unit. Officer Marcy Keller stepped out. Late 30s, sharp eyes, blonde ponytail. She walked over, glanced around, read the room fast. "Travis," she said quietly, "what's going on?" "Routine stop," he said, voice dry. "Possible stolen vehicle." Marcy peered into the car. Her brows lifted. "That's Judge Mallory." "I know," Marcy exhaled. "You need to clear this." "I'm trying." "No," she said, gently but firmly, "you're not." But even as help arrived, the moment was already past saving, and the damage had begun to spread. By the time Officer Marcy Keller walked back to her cruiser, it was obvious things weren't settling down. What had started as one patrol car on a quiet street had turned into something else entirely. Neighbors on porches. Kids whispering into phones. Bystanders recording from parked cars. It was as if the block had frozen in time, waiting for someone to make a move. Renee Mallory sat with her hands still resting on the wheel. Her robe, dark and formal, looked almost out of place now. It clashed with the rising chaos outside. She glanced up into the rearview mirror, not in fear, more like someone monitoring a courtroom before issuing a final judgment. Travis stood off to the side now, arms crossed, chewing his bottom lip. He kept watching the crowd. He wasn't sure anymore what he was trying to prove, but he wasn't backing down. From across the street, a voice called out, "That's Judge Mallory. She's been on the bench longer than he's been out of high school." A boy, maybe 16, phone in hand, nodded toward her window. "You all right in there, ma'am?" Renee didn't answer right away. She gave a small nod, silent but clear enough for anyone paying attention. It wasn't a thank you. It was a statement, "I'm handling it." Then from her side window, she spoke directly to Travis. "You've made yourself clear. I'd like to leave now." He didn't say anything. She repeated, "Officer Brenner, I am requesting to leave unless you are formally detaining me." More phones lifted. Marcy looked between them and Travis. "You need to let her go." She could have swapped plates, Travis said low, mostly to himself. Marcy's eyes narrowed. "You're reaching. I'm just doing my job." "No, you're digging your heels in." Renee rolled the window down another inch. "Officer Keller," she said, "I believe you're familiar with me." Marcy nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Then I trust you understand how many layers of wrong this is turning into." Marcy nodded again, slower this time. She stepped forward, gently leaned toward the car. "Judge, I'd advise you to stay in the vehicle just a few more minutes while we sort this out." Renee didn't flinch. "You mean while you talk him down?" "I mean," Marcy said carefully, "while I prevent this from becoming something it shouldn't." The street was now lined with more than 24 people. Someone had started live streaming. The chat comments buzzed in real time. "This is happening right now in Colombia. She's a judge. Why is he still holding her? That second cop looks like she wants to disappear." Renee opened her glove compartment slowly, pulled out a second ID, her judicial badge, and held it up to the window. Marcy squinted at it, then turned to Travis. "She's good to go. Everything checks out, including this," she said, holding the badge up. "We're gonna let her leave." Travis didn't answer. His arms were crossed tighter now, jaw set. He felt something unraveling but couldn't say what. His radio hissed with static, but he ignored it. "Travis," Marcy said again, voice firm, "you're done here." But he didn't step back. So Renee did something unexpected. She turned off the engine and then quietly stepped out of the car. The crowd gasped slightly, uncertain. She stood tall, robe flowing around her, holding her hands at her sides. "This is what it takes," she said, eyes sweeping the street, "for a black woman to be heard." People lowered their phones slowly. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was pressure, heavy and boiling. Travis's hand drifted near his belt again. Marcy's voice cracked across the air. "Don't." He froze. Renee looked at him directly. "You're not the law. The law is written. It's studied. It's upheld by people who've earned the right to interpret it. You enforce it, but only if you remember what it means." But this wasn't the end of the confrontation. It was only the point where the world started watching. Officer Brenner couldn't hear much anymore. His ears were ringing, not from noise but from pressure. His eyes flicked from face to face in the crowd, picking up smirks, phones, folded arms. No backup from the department had arrived. No superior. Just Marcy's eyes on him like a spotlight, and Judge Mallory standing, calm, regal, exposing everything wrong with how he handled this stop. Still, part of him wanted to double down. If he let her walk now, he'd look weak. Worse, he'd look wrong. So he stepped forward, just one pace. "Ma'am, I'm asking you to return to your vehicle." Renee didn't move. "Are you detaining me?" He swallowed. "You're interfering with a police investigation." There was a shift in the crowd. A few people laughed, not kindly. One older man near a mailbox muttered, "He's grasping now." Marcy turned to Travis, voice low but sharp. "That's not going to hold. You're improvising, and it's not policy." She refused to comply. She complied with everything you asked until it got personal. Travis's fists balled at his sides. Renee still hadn't moved. Her voice remained steady. "You're making up charges. That's misconduct." He snapped. His voice rose. "Get back in the car." That's when the woman with the live stream spoke up, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This man's about to arrest a judge because she made him look stupid." Renee took a step closer. Not aggressive, just enough to speak clearly without shouting. "Officer Brenner, if you place your hands on me without cause, you'll be making a career-ending decision." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." There was a long pause. Then he reached for her wrist. Not yanking, not forceful, but enough. And just like that, the crowd exploded. "Yo, you touching her now? She's a judge. Get your hands off her, man." Marcy stepped in immediately. "Travis, back off." She shoved herself between them, facing him full on. "Let go right now." Travis released her wrist. He stepped back, lips parted, breathing uneven. He looked lost. Renee turned to the crowd. "I will be filing a formal complaint. I will be requesting the full release of all body cam footage, dash cam, and I strongly recommend that anyone filming tonight hold on to their video." People cheered. Not loud, not wild, just loud enough to cut the tension. Travis tried to regroup, but it was too late. The crowd had turned, and Marcy wasn't standing beside him anymore. She was standing beside Renee. "You good to drive, Judge?" she asked softly. "I was good before this started," Renee replied. She stepped back into her car, adjusted her mirror, and started the engine. Her door shut with a quiet click that somehow sounded louder than all the shouting had. She didn't peel off. She didn't slam the gas. She pulled away at a smooth pace, her tail lights disappearing down the road. Travis stood there, hands on his hips, not sure what to do next. Marcy finally broke the silence. "You just tried to detain a sitting judge over a car she owns and a hunch you can't prove. I thought it matched. You escalated it. You ignored the confirmation from dispatch. You dragged this out until it collapsed on top of you." He turned toward her. "You siding with her?" "I'm siding with the law. You didn't follow it." He looked away, chewing the inside of his cheek. Someone across the street yelled, "Better get ready for the lawsuit." And just like that, the tension shifted from heat to weight. But the night wasn't over. Not for the department, not for Travis, and certainly not for Judge Mallory. By sunrise, it was everywhere. The clip from the live stream, barely 4 minutes long, had racked up over 300,000 views overnight. Judge Renee Mallory's name trended on social media, alongside words like racial profiling, abuse of authority, and body cam silence. Local outlets picked it up first. The state, WOTX. Then the national ones came knocking. Inside the Columbia Police Department, the mood was grim. The morning briefing room, usually filled with small talk and burnt coffee, was dead quiet. The chief, Harold Epps, didn't smile, didn't greet. He walked in, slid a printed headline across the table, and said, "This is what we're up against today." It read, "South Carolina judge wrongly targeted in traffic stop. Was her road the real threat?" Travis Brenner sat in the corner, trying not to shift in his seat. Everyone knew. Nobody said it. But eyes lingered longer than they should have, and not just at him. At Marcy too, the one who intervened, the one who didn't back him up. Epps looked at Travis. "You filed your incident report." "Yes, sir. I read it. Doesn't match what's on camera." Travis didn't respond. "We're initiating an internal review. You're on administrative leave effective immediately." Silence. Then a small voice. "With pay?" Epps nodded. "Standard protocol. But don't mistake that for support." Across town, Judge Mallory sat in her kitchen, road traded for a simple t-shirt and sweats, sipping black coffee that had long gone cold. Her phone buzzed constantly. Friends, clerks, reporters, colleagues. She answered none of them. Instead, she scrolled through the video, watched her face from the outside, watched the crowd, the shift in the officer's posture. The moment his fingers brushed her wrist, it didn't surprise her, but it still cut deep. Not because it happened, but because she'd always known it could. She looked up at the framed photo on her fridge. Her father in uniform, a black police officer in Columbia back in the 70s. He'd warned her, The road doesn't change how some people see you. They'll look past it. She had believed she could outgrow that. She hadn't. At noon, her clerk, Amy, stopped by. White, mid-30s, loyal to a fault. She looked nervous walking in, like crossing a minefield. "I brought you the docket for tomorrow. Thought maybe you'd want to prep." Mallory didn't look up. "You think I should go in?" "I think if you don't, they'll say it's because you were afraid." She raised an eyebrow. "You think I'm afraid?" "No, ma'am. I think you're tired." Mallory let the silence stretch. Then she said, "I'll be in court. Same time." Later that evening, a protest formed outside the police department. Not massive, maybe 100 people. Signs read "Power doesn't equal permission," and "Who judges the police?" Someone had printed stills from the body cam footage, posted them on wooden sticks like billboards. One photo had become iconic already. Rennie standing tall outside her Mercedes, road catching the wind, eyes locked on Brenner like a verdict. Inside the building, Travis sat alone at his desk, packing up his things into a cardboard box. He'd heard the chants outside, heard his name shouted a few times. He wasn't angry, not like before. He was mostly confused. He'd followed instinct, what he thought was right, what had felt suspicious. Now it just felt wrong. He looked at the photo on his desk, his wife and daughter from last summer, smiling, toes in the sand at Myrtle Beach. He wondered how he'd explain any of this to his kid, how to break down a mistake without sounding like a villain. Just then, Marcy tapped lightly on the doorframe. "You okay?" He shrugged. She leaned against the wall. "I didn't want it to go like that. But you didn't give me a choice." "I know." "You ever think," she said, folding her arms, "maybe what feels normal to you is what needs fixing?" He looked up at her, tired. "Yeah, I'm starting to." But introspection doesn't erase impact, and the city wasn't waiting for him to catch up. Before Judge Mallory wore a robe, before the courtroom respect and sharp bench rulings, she was just Rennie Parker from Aiken County, South Carolina. Her mother taught second grade for 31 years. Her father, Thomas Parker, wore a patrolman's badge that barely paid the bills. He stood over 6 feet, spoke softly, and came home quiet. Renee remembered one night in 1982 like it was yesterday. She was 17, headed to her weekend job at the Piggly Wiggly, when a deputy stopped her for what he called suspicious behavior. She was walking alone with a paper bag of snacks and a textbook. The deputy made her sit on the curb for 30 minutes, asking over and over where she lived, what she was doing, why she didn't have ID. She did. She showed it 3 times. It didn't matter. Her father showed up, furious, but composed. Told her not to cry, not in front of them. Told her some people don't want to believe you belong in certain places. Your job is to remind them you do, without yelling. That stuck. She'd spent decades working twice as hard, checking every box, building a reputation brick by brick. Undergrad at Spelman, law degree from Duke, years as a public defender, then a slow, steady climb to the bench. She had a reputation for fairness, strict but never cruel, and always precise. No room for error. That's how she'd survived. But after that traffic stop, survival didn't feel like the point anymore. She'd thought about that as she watched the city change around her. Billboards with her face, ones that had once celebrated her appointment, were now splashed across news reports as symbols of something bigger. In one interview, a legal analyst said, "Judge Mallory represents a painful paradox. She is the law, yet not immune to how it is selectively enforced." At a coffee shop near 5 Points, 2 students argued at a back table. One, a white political science major, said Brenner made a mistake, sure, but it didn't mean he was a bad cop. The other, a black sociology grad, said it wasn't about Brenner. It was about a system where a judge could be mistaken for a suspect simply by sitting in her own car. People debated the same points in living rooms, offices, barbershops. The question wasn't just what happened, but why it keeps happening. Meanwhile, Travis Brenner sat on his back porch in Northeast Columbia, flipping through his own memories. He wasn't raised to be a bully. His dad was a fireman. His mom was a nurse. He didn't grow up hating anyone. But he had grown up hearing things. Things like, don't let your guard down in certain neighborhoods. And people will lie to you before you even ask the question. And better to be safe than sorry. He used to think those were just cautious sayings. Now they sounded like quiet rules passed down without challenge. He remembered the academy, the drills, the lectures, the emphasis on compliance. But not once had anyone talked about what it meant to be wrong. He thought back to the look in Mallory's eyes when she said, "You don't see me." He hadn't, not then. He saw a possibility, a stereotype, and the badge made it feel okay to act on that. Now he wasn't sure what the badge gave him anymore. He looked over at the table beside him. Mallory's court testimony was scheduled in 2 days. He wasn't expected to attend, but he thought maybe he should. But public consequences aren't the same as private reckonings, and both were coming fast. The hearing was held at a modest municipal building on Hardin Street, not far from where it all started. No marble columns, no press wall, just a small room with stiff-backed chairs, water pitchers, and cameras packed shoulder to shoulder. Judge Mallory sat at the table in her usual posture, straight, controlled, hands folded. Not as the judge today, but as a witness. Travis Brenner walked in through a side door, not in uniform. Navy jacket, khakis, shoulders tight. No one clapped. No one sneered. Just silence, the kind that demands more than noise ever could. The Oversight Committee, a 5-member panel, sat at the head. Their role was clear: review body cam footage, assess officer conduct, and determine whether disciplinary action was warranted. On paper, it was procedural. But everybody knew this wasn't just about Travis. It was about something bigger, older, and harder to untangle. The footage played silently on a monitor. There was no narration, no commentary. Just the moment, the stop, the tone in his voice, the way she explained and explained again. The hand near the holster. The wrist grab. At minute 11:17, the screen flickered. A 40-second gap. Silence. Committee Chair Vera Lindell, a retired judge from Charleston, paused the playback. "Officer Brenner," she said, adjusting her glasses, "can you explain why your body cam audio dropped during that section?" Travis cleared his throat. "I don't know. Might have been a malfunction." "Are you aware that your department logs show your hand brushed the mute toggle at that exact time?" He didn't answer right away. "Yes," he finally said. Vera leaned forward. "So the footage goes quiet the moment things escalated. That's either extremely convenient or extremely concerning." Travis glanced down. Renee sat without expression, not smug, not angry, just watching. Later, she was invited to speak. Her voice didn't waver. She told them what happened again, but this time not to defend herself, to remind the room that trust isn't just about rules. It's about restraint, judgment, respect. "Every day," she said, "I sit behind a bench and decide if someone deserves leniency or punishment, if they're dangerous, if they're lying. And I do it knowing that the system is already tilted in ways many people don't want to admit." That night, it tilted again, and I had to carry it, even though I'd done nothing wrong. She looked toward Travis briefly, then back to the committee. The uniform doesn't give someone the right to ignore facts. It gives them the responsibility to honor them. Outside, a few dozen people gathered behind barricades, waiting for news. Reporters circled. Signs waved. The protest had shrunk, but the tension hadn't. Back inside, the panel broke for deliberation. 30 minutes passed. When they returned, Vera didn't mince words. The panel finds that Officer Brenner engaged in conduct unbecoming of his position. His actions were excessive, unsupported by evidence, and suggest a pattern of behavior inconsistent with departmental standards. Travis blinked. We recommend a 60-day unpaid suspension and mandatory bias retraining, pending final departmental approval. Further violations will result in immediate termination. Gasps murmured through the room. Some thought it was too light, others too harsh. But Renee didn't react. She stood, gathered her coat, thanked the committee, and left. Outside, a reporter thrust a mic toward her. "Judge Mallory, do you feel justice was served?" She paused. "I don't believe in justice as a moment," she said. "It's a practice, and tonight was just one part of it." Across the street, Travis stood alone under a tree, watching the cars move past. His suspension would begin the next day. No badge, no gun, just time. Time to reflect on how quickly authority turns into damage if you don't watch yourself. Marcy joined him a few minutes later. "You good?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "I don't think I'm supposed to be good. I think I'm supposed to be honest." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe you're finally starting. But honesty is just the first step. What comes next is what defines you." The next morning, Renee sat alone in her chambers at the Richland County Courthouse. The sun spilled across the floor, warming the edge of her desk. She had arrived an hour earlier than usual, not to prepare for a heavy docket, but to sit, to think, to breathe. There were letters on her desk, some handwritten, some typed. Notes from strangers, a thank you card from a law student, an email from a retired judge in Ohio. Words like grace, strength, and clarity showed up more times than she could count. But those weren't the words that stayed with her. It was a scrolled sentence at the bottom of a folded envelope from someone she didn't know. "You reminded me that staying calm doesn't mean staying silent." She read it twice, then a third time. At 9:00 a.m., the courtroom door opened. First case of the day, a probation review. A teenage boy, 16, maybe 17, entered with his public defender. Wore his shirt tucked in too tight, like someone told him to look presentable. Renee recognized the nervous shuffle, the rigid stance. She'd seen it for decades. This was the part of her job that most people didn't see, deciding, with limited facts, whether someone needed another chance or needed the system to step in. She reviewed the file. School suspension, minor theft, no prior record, a single-parent home. His voice cracked when he answered her questions, but he held eye contact. That mattered. She glanced over at his mother, who sat wringing her hands with the strength of someone used to praying through courtrooms. Renee leaned back in her chair. "Tell me something," she said softly but clearly. "Do you know why you're standing here today?" The boy nodded. "Because I made a mistake." "Sure," she said. "But that's not the whole answer. You're standing here because you were caught. The real question is whether you understand the kind of man you're becoming." He looked down, then up. "I don't want to be in this room again." "I believe that," she said. "But belief isn't enough." She paused, then closed the folder. "I'm continuing your probation without extension. No jail. But next time, there won't be another conversation. Understand?" "Yes, Mom." She tapped the gavel once, quick and quiet. Case closed. The boy's shoulders dropped in relief. His mother exhaled hard, and for a moment, the courtroom wasn't heavy. Just still. After court, Renee walked to her car. Same Mercedes, same parking spot. She sat behind the wheel and stared at the rearview mirror. Thought about how that mirror had once reflected flashing lights, suspicion, and a badge that didn't care who she was, and how quickly power could swing in the wrong direction when the wrong hands gripped it. But the lesson wasn't just for Officer Brenner. It was for everyone. For every kid who thinks the robe means protection. For every cop who thinks the badge means permission. For every system that thinks neutrality is enough. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she saw a small group of high school students walking along the sidewalk, carrying clipboards. One of them stopped, looked up, and waved at her. "Judge Mallory," he shouted. "We saw your video in class." She smiled gently. "Good or bad?" Both, he yelled. But it made us talk. And that, she thought, was something. Across town, Travis sat in his kitchen, staring at a blank notepad. The top read, Bias Reflection Assignment. He was supposed to write 500 words on how his assumptions shaped the traffic stop. He had written 3 times and ripped it up each time. But this time, he wrote one sentence first. I didn't see her, not as a person, not as a judge, not even as someone with a name. Then he kept writing. Not because it would undo what happened, but because silence was no longer safe. Not for him, not for anyone. What we choose to see, or refuse to, can cost people more than their dignity. It can cost them their peace, their safety, their future. If there's one thing this story leaves behind, it's this. Power means nothing without responsibility, and respect means everything when it's hardest to give. If this story made you pause, made you think, or made you feel something, remember that sometimes one voice is all it takes to change the direction of 1,000 others. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community, where we celebrate quiet strength, real struggles, and unexpected victories. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.